Okay, I think the conversation about Judaism, Jewish philosophy, Kabbalah, life begins with your average Joe walking down the street. Imagine you were walking with average Joe down the street and you guys saw a table sitting right there in the middle of the street. If you were to ask average Joe, where does this table come from? What are some possible answers average Joe might give you? Right? You might say that table fell out of a truck, it was put there, China, IKEA, all sorts of possibilities where that table might have come from. But he's not going to say, oh, the table just popped out of nowhere, right? Because the table is something that is in the finite. The table is something that is in time and space. And everything in time and space, we can know two things about it. We can know, number one, from nothing, nothing comes. And we can know, number two, nothing finite can create itself, right? So the table can't pop out of nowhere, and the table cannot bring itself into existence. Right? Let's take something else that is finite. Right? Let's take you. Right? Are you in the finite? Are you in time and space? Yes, certainly the side of you that we can perceive is in time and space, is in the finite. And therefore, we can know two things about you. We can know, number one, from nothing, nothing comes. We can know, number two, nothing finite can create itself. So it's not a matter of faith or belief, but we can know that you have or had parents, or you're created in a lab by some scientists, or you're all sorts of options. Let's assume for now you have parents. Fair? And so the parents also, are they in the finite? Sure, right? And so therefore I know two things about them. Number one, from nothing, nothing comes. Number two, nothing finite can create itself. So it's not a matter of faith or belief, but I can know just by looking at you that you have or had grandparents, right? Okay. So let's take this all the way back to the first person. Or if you want to include evolution, to the first ape-like being, the first monkey, the first amoeba, the first cell, the first gas, that first finite thing, so small you need a super-duper microscope in order to see it. And imagine we were to ask about that thing, where does it come from? So again, it's not a matter, if it's something in the finite, you might not be able to see it with your eye, but still it's in the finite. Still it is within the realm of time and space, and therefore I can know two things about it. I can know, number one, from nothing, nothing comes. I can know, number two, nothing finite can create itself. So it's not a matter of faith or belief, but the idea is that I can know that there can be no other logical alternative other than the idea that there's something that's outside the laws of the finite, something that's outside the laws of time and space, which created time and space and that which is in it. And this is what we call, in one word, the infinite. The infinite. Let's be clear what we're saying. We're saying nothing more than what it's not. Infinite. That which is not finite. That which is beyond the limitations of time and space. And of course, in a nutshell, this is what we mean when we refer to the word God. Right? And the next question becomes, okay, so what? So what? There's an infinite being. What difference does this make to me? What difference does this make to my life? Right? And what on earth did the infinite being put me here for? With the brain to figure out that he, she, it exists. Right? So let's see, what is it? What can you do for an infinite being? Right? Let's put that question to everybody here. What can you do for an infinite being? Right? Of course, there is nothing really that you're going to be able to do that's going to make a change to the infinite being. There's nothing that you're going to do that's going to make a change to the essence of the infinite. Right? If you pray to God, is God now infinite plus one? And it doesn't work. Right? And so the next question becomes, all right, if there's nothing that God's going to quote-unquote get out of the deal, what can I get out of the deal? So let's see, what is it that people want? What is it that people are after? What is it that is at the core of all the decisions and the choices that we make? Right? So there are different answers people can answer to this. Some people say money, some people say love, some people say meaning, some people say purpose. The answer I like to go with is happiness. Meaning to say that everyone wants to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life. The truth is, all the other answers I just listed are all totally legitimate. But I like to use the happiness answer because it is the umbrella organization. right? It is the umbrella organization, meaning to say that a person who wants love, a person who wants money, really, they want the feeling that comes along with it. They want what they think it's going to bring them. A person wants money because he thinks that's going to bring him to a certain level of happiness. Love, the person thinks they're going to be brought to a certain level of fulfillment. Even something higher like meaningfulness and purpose, those are a little bit more refined, but still, they're a higher level of happiness, right? And let's, by the way, let's just show that it's true. Let's just show that really everyone wants to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life, right? Imagine you have a guy, imagine Joe is walking down the street. What do you know? It's his lucky day. He finds a wallet sitting right there in the middle of the street, right? He cracks it open, looks inside. Whoa, $500. That used to be worth something. He looks on the other side of the wallet, though. Uh-oh, contact information. Email, cell phone, dilemma. What does Joe do? Right? So imagine Joe decides, you know what, I'm keeping that money. I'm keeping the wallet. Okay. Another little scenario. Imagine you had Jane walking down the street. What do you know? It's her lucky day. She finds a wallet. She picks it up, cracks it open, looks inside, $500. Well, she looks on the other side and she says, oh, wow, contact information, email, cell phone, dilemma. Jane, what do? Do you keep the money or do you give it back? All right, let's say Jane, though, gives it back. So here you have two people, Joe and Jane, doing bipolar opposite things. Joe keeps the money, Jane gives back the money. What I'd like to put forth, though, is that they're both doing these bipolar opposite things, but for the same basic reason, which is that everyone wants to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life. Right? Joe says, look, I want to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life, therefore I'm going to keep that money. Whereas Jane says, I want to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life. So Jane gives back the money, but she too takes back the feeling of doing good, being good, doing those things that society has brainwashed me to believe to be as good, and Jane feels the conceptual pat on her back from her society, and that makes her feel all nice and special inside. And so really, everyone wants to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life. The next question becomes, if I want to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life, next question is, okay, so how do I do that? So we take a look around the world and we see that there's all sorts of pleasure, joy, happiness options out there. You got sex, drugs, rock and roll, but what do all these pleasures have in common? Right? So if you notice, they're all temporary, they're all in the physical, or to borrow a word we've used already, they're all in the finite. Even rock and roll dies. They're all in the finite. Right? And so the next question becomes, okay, that's cool, but is there anything that goes beyond those pleasures, anything that goes beyond those limitations, anything that goes beyond the finite? Perhaps something we've mentioned already, right? The infinite. Right? And this is the idea, this is the Jewish idea, right? That everyone wants to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life. And therefore, what we're going to want to do is, we're in a world where there's an infinite being, we're going to want to build and facilitate a relationship, association, affiliation with the infinite. Right? And let's be clear what we're saying. We're not saying I want to chuck the finite for the sake of the infinite. No. We're saying I want to get it all. I want to get the infinite and I want to get the finite. The only time I'm going to pass up on any kind of pleasure, joy, happiness in life is if by my partaking in the lower finite pleasure, it will come and block my access to the higher infinite. In that particular case, I will forgo the finite for the sake of it not blocking my access to the infinite. And I know that's a lot of words, but let's realize that this is really how we make all the choices that we make in our life on all levels. Right? Here, let me give you an example. Right, for example, imagine you have a guy living on a college campus, and he's living that kind of lifestyle. You got a big man on campus, and he's with a different young lady every night. And so at first, he's living a few years with this lifestyle, and he's enjoying himself, and he's enjoying his life. But after a number of years, he decides, you know what, all this physical pleasure I'm involved with is fun and dandy, but I want to build a loving, committed relationship with a particular young lady. So can you hear the idea that in order for big man to build loving, committed relationship, Can you hear the idea that that entails him foregoing a whole lot of the physical pleasure he's been involved with up until that point? Right? Like, if big man would continue with big man on campus lifestyle, can you hear the idea that that would undermine loving, committed relationship? Right? And so, fast forward another 10 years down the road. And imagine we catch up with big man again, but here he is, happily married, with a wife and a couple of kids. But we find him leaving his wife and kids temporarily in a tearful goodbye to go out and fight for a cause that he believes in. Maybe his country's going to war and he thinks it's a noble cause worthwhile being a part of. Maybe he's going halfway across the world to fight hunger, to fight disease somewhere else. Can you hear the idea that in order for him to go ahead and pursue that higher, more worldly, more grander thing, that entails him leaving at least temporarily the 9-to-5 lifestyle he's been involved with up until this point, right? If he would continue with 9-to-5 lifestyle, clearly that would undermine him pursuing this grander, more worldly thing somewhere else, right? And so this is how we work on all levels, and we're constantly making choices with this kind of calculation. And so what Judaism is saying, look, at the top of this list is to build and facilitate relationship, association, affiliation with the infinite. And so the next question becomes, okay, if I want to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life, and the most is to build and facilitate a relationship, association, affiliation with the infinite, next question is, okay, so how do I do that? How do I go ahead and build a relationship with the infinite? That sounds kind of distant. That sounds kind of foreign. And so here's where the Kabbalists kick in, right? Because one of the foundational principles of all Kabbalistic thought, and let's just explain it for a second. What we mean by Kabbalah, of course, at first, the word Kabbalah is from the Hebrew word lekabel, which means to receive, because we are receiving deeper teachings about the world, about deeper layer of the Torah, etc., being received by the student from the teacher. It's one idea. However, a less known idea is that the word Kabbalah is also related to a Hebrew word makbil, which means parallel. Because one of the foundational principles of all Kabbalistic thought is that everything in the physical world is a parallel to a deeper spiritual reality. And therefore, if we understand this physical world with the proper wisdom, we should be able to intuit something about the way the spiritual works, right? Because the only reason the physical is working the way it does is because it's a parallel and projection of that which is going on spiritually, right? And of course, the opposite is true too. If we understand a spiritual principle at its core, we should be able to learn a lot about the physical, right? But so if we want to learn and understand a little bit about how we can build a relationship with the infinite, one way we're going to be able to do it is if we have the proper wisdom and understanding of interpersonal relationships, right, of the parallel of our ultimate relationship, our ultimate match made in heaven, our relationship with God. If we're able to go ahead and understand relationships in this world with the proper wisdom, we should be able to pull out principles and develop them and see how they apply to that ultimate match made in heaven, our relationship with the infinite. All right, so that's what we're going to do now. Here it goes. Principle number 1 of relationships for today is that in any relationship, the quality of a relationship depends on one's ability to choose it, and choosing it means you have to have the real ability to destroy it. All right, let's say that one more time. The quality of a relationship depends on one's ability to choose it, and choosing it means you have to have the real ability to destroy it. And if that didn't make any sense, stick with me for a couple of minutes, and we'll come back to that point, and we'll see it'll make perfect sense. Right? For example, can you think of a relationship that you did not choose? Right? So let's go with the parents. That's the easiest example. Right? So this explains why, in a healthy situation, and everything we're talking today is healthy situation, right? In a healthy situation, the parents are going to love the kids more than the kids love the parents, right? Which at first glance doesn't seem to make sense, because think about it, a child is born, and again, healthy situation, what is that parent doing for the kid? Right? Everything. And what is the kid consciously doing for the parents? Nothing. And you're going to tell me at the end of this it's going to be the parent that loves the kid more than the kid loves the parent? The parent's giving everything, the kid's getting everything, the parent's giving everything, the kid's not really giving anything consciously. And you're going to tell me the parent loves the kid more than the kid loves the parent? The answer, of course, is yes. That's the way a healthy situation works, because that's how loving works, right? That loving, according to Jewish wisdom, loving is rooted in giving. And by giving, we don't mean give $1 to the guy on the street. We're talking, that's very nice. We're talking here, though, about real giving of self. To the extent you go ahead and give of yourself towards another, so you extend of your identity towards that other, and what do you know? You come to love that other like you love yourself. Right? And so fast forward a number of years down the road. This child now grows up. Fast forward 20, 25 years, 30 years down the road, this child now grows up. And if you were to ask this person, hey, you want to get married one day? So chances are probably they would say yes, right? But the next question, though, is, well, hold on a second. You're telling me that you want to get married. Let's see, right? When you're growing up, your parents feed you? The guy says, yeah. Your parents clothe you? Yeah. Put a roof over your head? Yes. Okay, well, did you ever do anything to upset these people? Did you ever upset the parents? Usually they'll say yes, right? Ever make them cry? Oftentimes I get a yes to that one too, right? And so after you upset the parents, they still feed you? Yeah. They still clothe you? Yeah. Still put a roof over your head? Yes. They say, wow, that's amazing, but are you sure you want to transition and leave this relationship with the parents as primary relationship in your life? To move to a relationship with the spouse as primary relationship in your life, where if you say to her what you said to your mother, you're going to be in a whole lot of trouble. Isn't that true? Right? And so the question is, okay, why is it that we make this move? Why is it that we leave and transition from the relationship with the parents as the primary relationship in our life to the relationship with the spouse as primary relationship in our life? And let's narrow that question down a little bit, right? Not if we can leave the obvious physical reasons aside and leave also societal conditioning aside, just relationship-wise, lovey-dovey-wise, why is it that we go ahead and make this move to leave the relationship with the parents as primary relationship in our life and transition to a relationship with the spouse as primary relationship in our life? And so I think the answer is that in the relationship with the parents, the relationship, again, healthy situation, the relationship is so stable, it's almost like it's not even there. You do something good, you get result X. You do something bad, you still basically get result X. At some point you grow up, you become more mature, you become more independent, and this starts to make you a little bit sick. Like, where is the me in the relationship? Whatever I do doesn't have any effect. Like, the relationship with the parents is so stable. Like, of course, it fluctuates a little bit. But again, healthy situation, the parents aren't leaving you unless you come at them with a chainsaw. Right? So we transition from that relationship to a relationship with the spouse where that relationship, you do something good, that relationship gets much higher. It's only because if you did something bad, that relationship would get bad in a hurry. Right? And so people like to ask, well, hold on a second, then, why is it that this girl that I met said to me that she wants a stable relationship with me? What does that mean? Does she want a relationship with me like she has with her parents? And the answer, of course, is no. That's not what it means. What it means is that what she's saying is, look, I want to take this inherently delicate relationship with you, and this relationship where there is a real pull, opportunity, desire to do things that are against the relationship and might destroy the relationship. And nevertheless, I want each of us to go ahead and make the choice towards a relationship, even when there's a real pull, opportunity, desire to go against it in a way that would destroy it. Nevertheless, strengthen ourselves over ourselves to choose towards that relationship, towards that other, and then tomorrow, when I have a real pull, opportunity, desire to do something against the relationship in a way that might bring it down, nevertheless, to strengthen ourselves over ourselves once again and go ahead and make the choice towards the relationship, towards that other, towards that commitment, and then do it again next week, and then do it again next month, then do it again next year, then do it again next decade, and we've gone ahead and taken this inherently delicate relationship, and we will have built of it a stable relationship. But that stability is totally different than the stability of the parents. The stability of the parents is like given to you, and you can't really be given a relationship. This stability that is based on choice. this is real. This is based on you and your actions, and to the extent you went ahead and made those actions and made those choices in a real situation where you could have gone the other way, right? And so this is the idea that in any relationship, the quality of the relationship depends on your ability to choose it. And choosing it means you have to have the real ability to destroy it. Only when you have a real ability to destroy the relationship, only then when you go ahead and choose towards a relationship, is that choice a real choice. And this opens up the door to a higher level, more refined type of relationship. And this is so at the core of what Judaism is all about that you find it right there at the beginning of the Torah, right? What does Adam do to deserve being created in the Garden of Eden? Nothing. That's God as a parent. God as a parent says, listen, man, you're my kid. I want you to have it all. Puts him in paradise. But God says, when it comes to that higher level of relationship with me, when it comes to that husband-wife, spouse kind of relationship with me, that you have to choose it. This tree, not that tree. Okay, so principle number one of relationships for today is that in any relationship, the quality of a relationship depends on one's ability to choose it. And choosing it means you have to have the real ability to destroy it. Okay, principle number two of relationships for today is that in any relationship, the level of the relationship always depends on the lower of the two. Let's say that one more time. That the level the relationship is on is always dependent on the quote-unquote lower of the two participants in the relationship. For example, imagine you had this guy, we'll call him Joe, and we'll call the girl Jane, because those are the ones I like to use. So imagine you have Joe meets Jane, and they go out for a night in the town. And you know how it is. They get to drinking a little bit, and they're all loosened up, and Joe comes along and he says to Jane, Jane, I love you, you're incredible, let's get married. And Jane says, actually I was kind of thinking that I had something to say to you as well. I can't stand you, I want nothing to do with you, I never want to see you again. So here you have Joe, totally in love, 100%. Jane, 0%, wants nothing to do with Joe. Where is this relationship at? So, of course, the relationship is holding steadily at 0, right? Going nowhere fast. Because Joe could be totally in love, but it's not a loving relationship. Relationship is a two-way street. And therefore, a relationship is only as strong as the one who wants it least. Right? Now, if you take this principle, though, and apply it to our relationship with the infinite, we come away with something that's very awe-inspiring and empowering. And that is that in terms of our relationship with the infinite has quote-unquote lost control of the situation, right? The infinite is constantly giving us opportunity after opportunity to have the relationship with him. The question then becomes, how much do we choose back to God? Right? To the extent we choose back to God, that's the extent the relationship is going to be there. To the extent not, it just simply won't be there. Right? And that's the thing. People have these ideas about heaven and hell. Certain Kabbalists explain really heaven, hell, same place. Just a revelation of the reality of who you were, given the potential that you had and the choices that you made. Nothing more, nothing less. And so that's the thing. People like to think about like heaven like some trophy at the end of a season or a treasure chest at the end of a rainbow. Much better comparison, I think, is a 50th wedding anniversary party. Imagine you had the guy and the gal, and there they are at the head of the table, and they're looking into each other's eyes, and it's like there's fireworks in the background. But can you hear the idea that the love that each one feels towards the other is going to be nothing more and nothing less than the experience of the sum total of the choices that each one made towards the other, minus the missed opportunities and the times they chose against each other, thereby building a conceptual wall between the two of them. Right? Nothing more, nothing less. And in a similar manner, this is the same story in terms of our relationship with the infinite. Right? In our relationship with the infinite, we know that the principle of how relationships work is that the level of relationship always depends on the quote-unquote lower of the two participants in the relationship. And in terms of our relationship with the infinite, the lower of the two participants is me. To the extent I go ahead and make the real choices towards that relationship, towards the infinite, I go ahead and raise my relationship with the infinite. To the extent not, God forbid, I miss out. And so the next question becomes, okay, so how do I raise the bar? How do I go ahead and start building my relationship with the infinite? And so this is where the concept of Torah comes in. And let's be clear what we mean by Torah. The Hebrew word Torah is from the Hebrew word hora'ah, which means teachings, right? Just like the word mora means teacher. So Torah is teachings. Teachings for what? Teachings for life, right? What's life all about? Well, everyone wants to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life. What's the most available? To build and facilitate a relationship, association, affiliation with the infinite. And so therefore the Torah is those teachings, instructions, if you will, those teachings about how to build my relationship with the infinite. But the truth is, though, that every relationship you'll ever have has a Torah, has those teachings, that idiot's guide to relationship with person X, right? That do this, it'll make the relationship better. Don't do that, it'll make the relationship worse. Sometimes it's easy for me to understand why. Other times, I just don't get it, right? Like in my relationship with my wife, we have a Torah of our relationship, right? Certain things, do this, it'll make it better. Don't do that because it'll make it worse. Sometimes I understand why, and sometimes, I don't know, I just don't get it. All right? Like for example, I understand, come home with a smile on my face, roses in hand, maybe some jewelry, chocolate for sure. Good in my relationship with my wife. I get that. Thou shalt not come back yelling and screaming, bad for the relationship. I get that too. But then there's these other things based on who I am, based on who she is, which I just don't get it. Right? Like there's a commandment in the Torah of the relationship with my wife that states, thou shalt not squeeze the toothpaste from anywhere other than the end of the tube. So now here we are married for about 14 years, and after much analysis, I have basically discovered that it will be better in my relationship with my wife if I just squeeze the toothpaste from the end of the tube. That's about as far as I've gotten, all right? And so it means to say that even in our relationships, our lifelong, lovey-dovey, human being, in front of our face, right, relationships, married to the person for 70 years, life partner, still there are certain things that, yes, I'm going to understand. There are other things which at first I won't understand, but through study, and through consulting, and through counseling, and through asking people, and through reading the right books, and hearing the right information, so then maybe I will understand. And then there's other things, which based on who I am, based on who she is, I'm just never going to get it. And that exists with a person right in front of my face, life partner. So all the more so, again, this is a parallel and projection for our ultimate relationship, our ultimate match made in heaven, that our relationship with the infinite. And this is really what Judaism is all about going ahead and building that relationship with the infinite.